You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison for the usual busy show. So Brendan McCullum has backed his top seven to come good in the third Ashes Test this week. We'll hear from the England coach and discuss the change to the team for the Adelaide Test match with Josh Tongue coming in for Gus Atkinson. We'll also discuss what next for Mark Wood after he was ruled out of the series after bowling just 11 overs. And with him turning 36 next month, is that the last we've seen of him in the Test arena? From Australia, talkSPORT's cricket writer Ben Horne gives us the latest from the Australian campus. Pat Cummins returns to the squad. And where will Usman Khawaja bat? Will Usman Khawaja bat? Plus, we'll discuss some big money deals for England players in the 100 and round up some of the week's other big stories. And of course, we'll finish with the final word. So plenty to come over the next hour. This is Following On. Okay, let's start, Harmy, with Brendan McCullum explaining why. Michael Vaughan was one of many who said that Ollie Pope had run his race and they've got to bring in some changes in the top order. And Ben Stokes' comment about weak men in the dressing room was discussed a lot. So let's hear from England coach Brendan McCullum talking about the decision to keep the top seven as played in the first two tests.
We've had a top seven now for a period of time, and we've been reasonably successful with it. These conditions should suit the style of batters that we've got as well. We know we haven't got enough runs so far in the series. We've been in positions where we could have, and we've made mistakes, and that can happen at times. But for us to go on and win the series, it's not about throwing out what's been successful for us over the last few years. It's about having more conviction in it. It's about making sure that we have our plans and our disciplines around it just screwed down a touch more. And it's making sure we walk out there, we have utter belief in what we're capable of achieving. And knee-jerk reactions and chopping and changing settled batting lineups is not really our way now.
England coach Brendan McCullum. Right call, Harmy. I mean, there's a couple of players there. Well, Ollie Pope, I mentioned, who will feel, I'm pretty sure, when he walks out to bat, that he's batting for his career.
Yeah, I think Ollie Pope definitely might be batting, being in that boat. Zach Crawley probably in that boat as well. We'll come on to Shoaib Bashir in a second, but I think Brendan McCullum, he's got this far. He's got this far with seven. This top seven. I know Jamie Smith came in about a year ago, but by and large, this has been the group that he's built. By and large, he has built a tight-knit community around him. I've seen some things in the week on social media and videos that are going around. He got rid of a lot of backroom staff. Did Brendan, to make sure that it was a tight-knit little group. It was people that he wanted to work with, and he didn't really want to let anybody in. You could say it was like a Jolly Boys club. Especially the way things have gone on this tour. And the seven people that he's backed in from a batting department, I think Brendan McCullum's basically saying, well, I've come this far with you. I'm not going to throw you overboard because there's a little bit of heat and some choppy water. I'm going to stick with you. You have to back me up. And Ben's comments at the end of the last test match hopefully will ring into a few of their ears. In a way which you go in, I would have changed it, but I can understand why he didn't. Michael Vaughan's right. I think Ollie Pope is at a position, not for the first time, where he has been asked to bat at number 3, and I feel for Ollie Pope. I do. I mean, the hardest place one of the toughest places to bat for England has been number 3 over the years. We haven't had many nail it down, other than possibly Andrew Strauss and Jonathan Trott. And for me, Ollie's technical deficiencies have struggled with batting at that position. Is there a player in there? Of course, there's a player in there. Manners, we were in Hyderabad, weren't we? We seen that magnificent 190. You don't do that in India if you're not a good player, aren't you? So I think it's just the position he batting that is causing young Ollie a problem. But I don't agree with Michael when he said Ben Stokes to number 3. I think Goffey was talking about it on the cricket show last night. Ben Stokes has got far too much on his plate to walk out at number 3. He has. I know he's superhuman, but that would be, I mean, that's ridiculous. So Ben and Brendan are basically saying, you got us into this mess. We're going to have to stick with it, and you can get us out of it. So I understand why they've gone with the top 7 as status quo, because let's be fair, Jacob Bettel coming in at number 3. We made a joke a couple of times on this show in the last couple of weeks. It's like, which one do you want to average 25? And if that's the case, and we don't think it's going to change too much, then you stick with the people that you've backed and get them through the series, and then make, the big call, which would be to move on to somebody else.
We heard from Hashim Amla via Russell Domingo last week that, there are certain shots you just don't play. And this isn't a modern phenomenon. You can go back, probably 100 years. On fast, bouncy pitches, you don't play the cover drive. A lot of people talk about Sachin Tendulkar's 240 at the SCG when he put the cover drive away, just didn't drive. Well, he's not the only one. I mean, Hashim Amla scored 196, one of the great innings at the Wacker, and he didn't drive. He tucked everything off his legs, a couple of sort of punches off the back foot through the offside, but he didn't drive, and it's frustrating. Well, put this question to Ben Horne. I'm sure he'll talk about it as well, but it's the shot selection. I suppose Crawley and Pope come to mind immediately, but Harry Brook as well. They're cover driving on 2 of the quickest, bounciest pitches in the world.
Yeah, cover drive, and it comes to the shot selection, and it's not so much the selection. The selection is compounded by the execution. I mean, Ollie a couple of times has been out now. A few times he's been out in his career, which it's a regulation dismissal made look horrendous by his body shape, his technical, his hands, his where his bat is, hands out in front of his body, his head's fallen over, feet aren't moving, all these things that just don't look great when Ollie Pope is getting out. Ben Stokes does it sometimes as well, where you get out and all of a sudden he's off balance, he's thrown his sort of hands in the air, his bat's gone, and it just doesn't. The selection is one thing, the execution, I think, is the biggest problem that England have had. They want to play shots, but unfortunately they don't get themselves technically in a position to play them shots. And when you play on a bouncy wicket in Perth or in Brisbane, I mean, it's just going to make it a whole lot worse. So, yeah, I think the problem has always been there. I think I was in talkSPORT a few weeks ago, last week, I think, and Simon Jordan absolutely nailed me. And he had a point to an extent, and it was off air. It was a little bit on air, but a lot of it off air. And he was like, "What gives you the right to have a go at this team preparation and everything like that?" I said, "Well, 2 Ashes, we've been crossed there, and, but you lost." I went, "No, but we know what the situation is." But you lost. You're losers. So your opinions are coming from a losing series. And it hit home with me. And I was thinking, right, are we getting this wrong here? Is it that because we have lost over Australia, we have not been to Australia and won. But we are critical of this team, but we've not won ourselves in Australia. But the actual fundamental flaws that this England team and England teams have made before, this team have made different mistakes. The teams before have always been prepared, just been beaten by a better team because they've had Horne, McGrath, and etc. This team, I don't think they've been prepared. I don't think they've been beaten by a great side. I think largely down to the fact that they're beating themselves. But the one thing I'll say that everybody else is not smarter after the event is there are so many shots you can play in Australia and there's so many shots you can't play in Australia. And England, unfortunately, have been fallen into the trap that a lot of ex-players, a lot of pundits, a lot of people who have played in Australia have said, you've got to do this. This is what's gone wrong. And this is what we said right at the very start. So I think it was smarter after the event. But I was actually hit home going, actually, have we got this wrong? Is Simon Jordan right in such a way where he's going, yeah, Yous are having a go at these lads about preparation and everything, but yous were losers because you lost as well. So I was trying to work out whether that's right or it's wrong, but it definitely hit home that the teams that have gone to England and lost have prepared the same way. England have tried to do something different. Now, I don't think they've got it right, but they might have been closer than what the previous England sides have done. And possibly, instead of being brainwashed and not prepared from the start, we have been physically and mentally fatigued going into that first test match, having been in the country for so long, played so many games, and not been mentally fresh for the likes of Warren, McGrath, Ponton, etc. going. So there might be a happy balance when the all comes in the wash at the end of it. But again, it comes back to what you're saying. England's selection, shot selection, shot execution. That doesn't matter whether you've beat Australia a million times before. England just haven't been up to being able to execute the game plan that they've had with both bat and ball.
All I will say, Harmy, is that you don't prepare for a marathon by doing sprints.
Absolutely.
And, bowling 8 overs in the nets is a sprint. That's like 100-meter dash. I mean, anyway, we need to talk about. We might have to carry this over into part 2, actually, because I'm just going to tee you up here and let you go. Let's talk about the changes that have been made. Well, one change with Josh Tongue coming in for Gus Atkinson, who's been ineffective in the first 2 tests, and this is what we might have to carry into part 2. Shoaib Bashir has been a sort of 2 or 3 year project for the Ashes. And here was the test match, probably as Sydney as well. The 2 tests that he was absolutely going to play were Adelaide and Sydney. And I think, if he's not going to play in Adelaide, that could be it. I don't know whether he's going to be discarded now, but I don't know. It's a big story, isn't it?
It is a big story. You're right, Manners. And the problem I think England have got is because quite a few other people aren't performing, I'm not sure Ben's confident to go, I'll take somebody else in that we're not sure about. It was simple as that. I don't think this is sort of throwing the baby out of the bathwater. I just think it's simple as, I think Ben possibly has gone, I would have made this decision. If I'm captain of England, I wouldn't have picked up Shoaib Bashir. I'd have been saying to Brendan, you know what? This is probably one more that we can't carry. If we're not scoring enough runs, we're not bowling balls enough in the area consistently enough. I'm not saying this is the right thing to be thinking, because you should be thinking our players in international cricket should be nailing their skill sets. But you have to look at it and go, for 2 test matches, we've been scattergun with the ball for quite a long period of time, apart from that first day in Perth. We haven't been up to it with the bat. Can we afford to carry somebody else? Because let's be fair, he has been a project, Shoaib Bashir. It has been 19 tests. And the scary thing is, Manners, if Shoaib Bashir played, he would be the most experienced bowler on show. He's got more caps than Tongue, more caps than Archer, more caps than Cars. So he's our experienced bowler. And I think Ben might be thinking, I can't carry somebody else. So I think it's a little bit of old school back to, Godfrey's era where you pick bits and pieces cricketers. I just think because of the way the batting has gone, I think England might feel a bit safer with comfort blanket of Will Jacks at number 8, bowling a few overs. And let's be fair, if it is going to spin, it's going to spin day 3, end of day 3, or into day 4 and day 5. England have been out the test match by then, and you're asking him to bowl. I think there's logic in this. I'm not as critical towards the management to say you've thrown 3 years out the window by leaving the guy out. He's gone to Lilac Hill and bowled 25 overs, not for 115. He got belted off the Lions in the game at Lilac Hill. If he's got wickets coming into the series, then it's a no-brainer. You pick him. He's played 20 test matches. We're still unsure by him. I can understand the selection. I really can. I just think it's one more player Ben Stokes doesn't want to have to carry. And I think something that hasn't been mentioned and probably won't be mentioned just till now is that the managing of Shoaib Bashir by Ben Stokes is literally handheld. Ben Stokes is going to have to bowl a lot in this. Ben Stokes has got a lot on his plate at this moment in time with everything that's gone on, 2-0 down, all the hype, Ashes, everything that's going with him. I don't think Ben Stokes needs Shoaib Bashir playing because I think it affects Ben Stokes' game. England need Ben Stokes. He doesn't need somebody standing mid on and mid off, basically doing everything but let go of the ball for a spin bowler. So I think the right call has been made.
Before we talk about Mark Wood, Harmy, just a quick word on the one change that England have made. Josh Tongue in for Gus Atkinson. I said Gus Atkinson's been a little ineffective. I mean, he's been tidy, but it hasn't looked like taking wickets, to be honest.
No, you're right. You're 100% right again, Manners. I mean, it's John Norman. You mentioned John there. We were talking about it with Scott, and I'm not sure if Coffey was in this conversation, but it was what would you do selection wise for the next test? And I said two changes. I think I understand them not leaving Pope out, so that's one change gone because I would have possibly thought about bringing Bethel in and have a look at the batting, but because of that, no, gone with the top seven, and I don't blame them for that. But the obvious choice would have been Tongue for Carse. But, I mean, Brydon Carse is England's leading wicket taker. He's not been able to put two or three balls in a row in the same spot. But what I would say from that point of view is he's looked the most effective to take a wicket, and we've gone on a flat pitch in Adelaide. Now, Gus has bowled a couple of decent new ball spells without really looking like getting a wicket. And a catch dropped, but he just seems as though in Australia he's that nice pace, nice length to face, where he's not beating the bat that much, and he's it just hasn't gone for Gus. It really hasn't. And he's probably been our most consistent line and length bowler, but I just don't think he's been at it from a wicket taking point of view. And we've got to remember we're 2-0 down. I look at the difference between why he's gone with Carse and Tongue's in because we need to change it up. And the difference between Atkinson and Carse, I think, Ben, a little bit like what Andrew Flintoff said during his interview with me when he was serialising his book. He said, I look across and I know for a fact everything you've got in the next spell, you will give it to me, and I can trust that. And whatever time of the day it is, I know you'll give me that. And I think Ben might think that about Brydon Carse, that back end of the day, Brydon Carse is going to turn up and just run in and bowl the fastest speed as he can. And it doesn't tend to come drop down, it doesn't tend to go up, but he bowls wicket-taking balls. And I just think, on a gut feeling, I would have gone Carse over Atkinson because I need to win. I need wickets. He's our leading wicket taker in the series. Yes, he might be going at 7 and over, but I still need wickets on a flat pitch in Adelaide. And I think the right call's been made. As much as Gus might feel as though being as men the scapegoat, being the only one left out, I think it's the right call. Archer had to play it. Out of the other bowlers that's there, I think Potts would have been nice to face in Adelaide. Fisher would have been nice to face in Adelaide on a flat one. I think so will Atkinson. So their time might be further down the line, but on a flat pitch, I can see why they've gone Carse over Atkinson.
We might have got short odds a couple of years ago with Archer playing 3 test matches in a row, but that is great news. Anyway, let's just talk about Mark Wood. He's bowled 11 overs in test cricket since 2024. But he has vowed to get back to full fitness. He turns 36 in January. He posted this on Instagram. Whatever happens, I will continue to push the limits to get back again. It's been a tough road these past few months, but I remain determined to give it another proper go. I still believe we can turn things around. Never give in. I just want to contextualise for those people who don't know that you are very close to Mark Wood. and which actually doesn't necessarily always mean that you know exactly what's going on. I know because I'm close to certain cricketers, and they don't tell me stuff because we're friends. You know, I've got colleagues who know more about cricketers I'm close to than I do. But you know, the Ashes are usually the end of a cycle, aren't they? And the start of another cycle. Woody turning 36. I don't know. I mean, he's played 38 tests since his debut 10 years ago. He has always been injury prone, and England have always stuck with him because clearly when he's on, he's worth it. He's a match winner. Where to now for Woody?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. As I try not to ask him. I mean, I've spoken to him since his decision to come home, but I tend not to. I don't ask him about anything like that. The first thing I rang him and said, "Are you all right?" Basically, as a person, not as a from a knee point of view. I'm not saying I don't care about the knee point of view, but I care about the person and what he's going through. Again, going back, not being able to play since February. And I try not to ask him because I think, I mean, my mouth is sometimes 3 seconds quicker than my brain. So if I've got information, I tend to blurt it out. So I try and keep away from the information matters, because it means if I've not got the information, I can't say it. I can speculate, but I can't say it. My feelings on Mark, right? And I wanted to wait till he got home before, and I've not spoken to him since he got home. I think he got home Friday or Saturday. I had a bit of a rant with Goffey last night on the Ashes preview show, Goffey's show. And it's whoever's managed Mark through this situation, it's been a disgrace. Because I look at this, and you mentioned it in the first section, you said, we should be looking at sort of training them the marathon, not a sprinter. Training for marathons and not for sprinting. So whoever's managed Mark, and when I say this, I mean, his management has been so badly mismanaged. Nearly swore there. Because here's a kid who's not played since February, right? So he's not played since February. We were at the Oval. I was having a drink. You were having a commentate at the Oval for the test match. When Brendan McCullum said in the pre-test build-up, Mark Wood was really close to playing in this test match. That was July, right? So that's July. Mark Wood doesn't play a game of cricket until November in Lilac Hill. He bowls 8 overs and an inter-game, and his hamstring goes for a scan because he's a bit sore, naturally, because he ain't bowled competitively. And then, lo and behold, he plays in the first test match, which was absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid. It really was. And you wonder why his knee is flared up. And you wonder why he's got a sore knee and he's swelling's this and swelling's that. Misses the next test match. So for me, whoever's decided all this, I mean, is an absolute disgrace. Because, and there's something else I want to come on to on this. Because of the ECB's management, so much disregard for county cricket, I think Mark's in this position because of that. Because they don't want their players to play county cricket. They look down on county cricket like it's something on the bottom of their shoe. They're not looking to pick from county cricket. They're looking to pick from the pathway. That's all I hear. Pathway, pathway, pathway. England Lions got beat by an innings against Australia A, and it was the next best Australia A side. I mean, you could pick 2 sides out of the rest of the counties to be better than the Lions squad. And I know the Lions squad's a young England side. It's not an A tour, so I get that. But because they've got such disregard of county cricket, that's why I don't think Mark Wood went back to play for Durham. Durham had 4 or 5 games in September. I was saying to Mark during the summer, if you're that close of playing in July, you need to play a couple of games of Durham in September. You play 2 out of the 5 4-day games. You find out that your hamstring is not strong enough, so it needs working on. You find out that your knee will swell up, so you can manage it. You get these little niggles out of the way in September, Then you go to Loughborough in October to do all the pre-camp. Then you go to New Zealand and you're in a better position for having confidence that your body's in a position to bowl in games. And what happens? Nah, we don't like county cricket. County cricket is a waste of time. County cricket is useless. County cricket is not fit for purpose. What we'll do is we'll take him from February. We'll get him close to being fit for the last day of the last test match in July. We won't bowl him again in a match situation until November. We'll send him for a scan straight after that game after 8 overs. And we'll pick him in a test match. Like I said before, complete mismanagement of a bowler who is 36 years old and probably will not play test match cricket ever again. And that's not just coming from a friend. That's coming from that if his name had been Gus Atkinson, if it had been Bryden Cars, if it had been Matt Fisher, I would have said exactly the same thing. As a bowler, you nailed it on the head before. They're not sprinters, they're marathon runners. You have to build a bowler up from endurance. And unfortunately, Mark Wood's not the only one. Young bowlers in this country now are not prepared properly for longer format cricket. So that's why we'll use 1 million bowlers in test match cricket, because we'll never get a consistency. Because what happens? Broad Anderson knew how to bowl because they were used to bowling long spells, used to the old school mentality of how you prepare a body to play test match cricket. Other than Broad Anderson over the last 10 years, we haven't had many bowlers back up test match, play a full series, go and win a series for us because they've got the wood, like Mitch Stark has, like Scott Boland has, on the opposition. Our bowlers get rotated. And that's really what annoys me about the way our bowlers are getting treated in this country.
He wanted to play.
Yeah,
Mark Wood wanted to play for Durham. He even said, hopefully I can play 2 rounds of the championship for Durham. And the ECB said, no, you're contracted to us. You're not playing. Anyway.
And Manners, you know yourself. You've been around the block more times than anybody else. You know what test match takes out of a bowling body. And I said this last night again. An average fast bowler will bowl in a test match, will bowl 30 overs in a test match because his team's not very good. They might only bowl once in a little bit because the opposition have blown them away. If you want to be a good team, you want to be a really good team, you spend a lot of time in the field. You spend a lot of time in the field because that's what good teams do. And good teams spend a lot of time in the field, which means overs need to be bowled. A bowler that bowls between 50 and 60 overs will cover 40 kilometres, maybe more, 40 plus kilometres over the course of 5 days. Again, comes back to what you said before when you nailed it. We're building them to do 100 metres, 200 metres, 400 metres. We're not building them to do marathons. Unfortunately, bowling is hard. Bowling is tough. Bowlers' bodies, when they finish bowling, they put 5 stone on. Darren Gough, metal knees. All these bowlers, Matthew Hoggard wouldn't get on the screen. We're conditioned to bowl. The minute we stop bowling, we put weight on because that's the endurance that bowling does to you. You have to train for it. You have to be prepared for it. Your body has to be ready for it. And unfortunately, at this minute in time, we prepare bowlers to play franchise cricket. And we'll never be a top test team until we start preparing bowlers to be test match bowlers. That might not be the modern way of thinking. That might be the old school of thinking. And bowlers might just be wanting to play 4 overs. But if we want to produce a top test team, we have to produce bowlers that can bowl back-up test matches with a lot of overs and be accountable to making sure that their first spell and their last spell is the same pace. Because at the minute, we've had this conversation with Archer, and I think a lot of the Archer stuff is getting blown out of all proportion. But I understand the argument. When England needed him, day 2 to turn up, he turned up with a pillar. And when he turned up, the game was finished. Now, it's not as simple as that, but it's what it played out as. But again, it comes back to Jofra Archer can't bowl 50 overs at 150 kilometres an hour. Nobody can. But if he is struggling at the end of a day to bowl that 150 kilometres an hour in that 3 over spell, to get the difference and get that wicket which transforms tomorrow morning, then all of a sudden your preparation comes into question. The things that will never ever change over while Test match cricket is 5 days long.
Right, enough of England. Let's turn our attention to Australia with Ben Horne, familiar guest on this programme and great writer for News Corps Australia. Ben, what's up? Where's Usman Khawaja going to bat? Is he going to play? How's Pat Cummins going?
There's a lot of questions for a team that's 2-0 up in the series, isn't there? But yeah, man, as I understand from training today, and obviously you can read too much sometimes into what they're doing in the nets, but I believe the way they sort of lined up in the nets today had Travis Head taking the new ball with Jake Weatherald. So I think the gut feel down there is that the status quo may remain for this test match with Travis Head staying at the top of the order, and perhaps it may be hard for Usman to get into the team. If he does, it would have to be in the middle order perhaps, but none of this is confirmed, of course. And it's an interesting debate because, I mean, a lot of the people I've been speaking to around the traps the last couple of days had started to convince themselves that Khawaja would come in at the top of the order. So, it's an interesting one. Look, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they just stick with Travis Head. I think, if Khawaja had been fit for Brisbane, I think he may well have come back in. But being injured for that match and Australia going on to win the way that they did, it just makes it hard to make a change at this stage of the series.
Then is it simple as, you've got nearly 1,000 test match wickets. Is it simple as Cummins and Lyon in, Doggett and Nisa out?
Yeah, well, it's certainly mostly that simple, Harmy, I'd say. The only one that I might be, just a little unsure of would it be Nisa out or Scott Boland out? I presume it'll be Nisa out because Andrew McDonald, the coach, indicated earlier in the week that they would just be going with their best attack for this test. They wouldn't be thinking about test 4. It's just going all in on this one, which, despite Nisa taking 5 wickets in the last match, Scott Boland would still have to be in Australia's best attack. So I'd presume Scott Boland stays alongside Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc and Nathan Lyon. But Nisa, just on the back of what he did do in that last match and the fact that the MCG test comes quickly on the heels of this match, and that's where Scott Boland has such an amazing record. I just haven't completely ruled that option out either. But, I think they'll keep it pretty simple, Australia. And, Pat Cummins coming into captain is an interesting one as well. Not unexpected, of course, but just given how Steve Smith's marshalled the troops in the first 2 tests, that's a bit of a change in itself.
Ben, we're sports journalists, and there's nothing worse than being asked to speak about real world affairs and stuff that actually matters. But the tragedy at Bondi Beach must have cast a bit of a shadow over the series. Sport's got a history of always carrying on. The game goes on. But I would imagine that it's a fairly bleak time for all Australians. It happened in Sydney, it's a long way away, but that's where you live.
Yes, mate, absolutely. It was, just appalling and, frankly, kind of hard to get your head around just watching the TV last night. I think I watched about 6 hours straight of the coverage last night. And, yeah, you just can't believe that it's happened in your city. And on that level, I think the test match is going to play a very important role on Wednesday because, people look forward to that normality, I suppose, and that chance to just enjoy what they normally enjoy. So, although this is a reminder that really none of this cricket stuff matters too much when you get down to it, but I think it will be an important release for people just to feel normal and to get back to what we like to do in Australia. But look, it is very sad. Particularly for the Jewish community in Sydney and around Australia, it's just horrifying. But just to be a Sydney side and so many Australian players live in the eastern suburbs. They live in that part of Sydney. So, I imagine, there'd be a lot of players who had friends that were at the beach that day or in restaurants around. So I think for a lot of people, it would be very close to home. Michael Vaughan, of course, was in a restaurant just up the road. And, I spoke to another player today who had friends in a nearby restaurant. So, yeah, it does hit home. And, yeah, it'll be a bit of a somber start to the Test match, I think.
Yeah, I had a few messages back and forward last night with my former captain Michael Horne, and I'm not betraying any confidence here. He was terrified. He said it was a terrifying experience. So you're right. We echo everything that you said about what happened, and hopefully the Test match will play out in such a way that the Australian public can have something to look forward to this week, because it was. I'm with you. 6 hours. We had it the same here back in England. It was never off the sort of start of the news cycle, and it looked terrifying. And you mentioned a lot of players from Australia being from that Sydney area. Hopefully everybody concerned with it it was all safe and well, because I would imagine there'll be a lot of English holidaymakers over there at the time to sort of spend time in between the Test matches. And speaking of England, Ben, how have the Australian public, what have they made of England's sort of, I wouldn't say sort of challenge of the Ashes, but we're 6 days in and England haven't really sort of put up anything to sort of come back at Australia to make Australia think this Ashes is going to be a contest.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell, what the wider view would feel. I mean, I feel a bit disappointed. I mean, I just was really hoping for a competitive Ashes series, and I thought it would happen. I mean, and it should have happened. I mean, England should have won that first Test. They were a couple of good sessions away from really putting Australia away in that match. And look, if they won in Perth, we'd be coming into this Test match possibly 1-1 and a very flat pitch, possibly for England to really play the style of cricket that they want to play. But being 2-0 down in the series, and I do sense that their confidence and their trust in what they're doing has been affected by the last two Test matches. So, look, I think they're capable in terms of the personnel, and I think that the conditions of the Adelaide Oval should suit them as well. But I'm just not sure that they've got that fight left in them. Let's hope they do. But I've been disappointed. I think a combination of just a couple of key players not standing up. The bowlers, I guess, particularly Wood and Archer, just I guess that evidence that maybe they didn't have the miles in their legs coming into the series, and also just England failing to kind of play smart cricket when it was required. So it's not over yet though. I mean, we saw in the last Ashes England roar back from 2-0 down. So they've got to come up with something here, and maybe this backs to the wall situation will suit them.
Your colleague, the great Crash Craddock, said a couple of days ago, I don't know anything about technique, but I've covered 16 or 17 Ashes series or whatever it is. And he said, what I do know is that teams that win prepare hard. He said, I don't know whether you saw that interview. He said, Mitchell Starc, he's just hard. He's just got a lot of overs in his legs and in his body. And the implication was quite clear that England don't.
Yeah. Sorry, man, I was just admiring your Crash impersonation, which I know you've honed. But, look, it's a tough one because obviously we all think that playing tour matches is sort of an essential part of going away on an Ashes tour, but it just hasn't happened in recent times. And on both sides of the fence, I mean, it's not like Australia's gone to England and played a whole lot of cricket leading into the Ashes. I mean, they were lucky, I guess, last time that they had the World Test Championship final to lead them into the Ashes. But, times have changed, I guess, with the amount of preparation that's allowed. It'll be interesting if this forces the two teams to go a little bit more back to the old days in future series. I do think England missed a trick by at least not getting some sort of practice at the WACA, even if it was an intra-squad match, just being able to play at that venue rather than Lilac Hill, which really didn't replicate what they were going to face at Optus Stadium. And I think shot selection's been a big thing. I mean, you can play aggressive cricket in Australia, but, there's a way to do it. In Perth and Brisbane in particular, there's just certain shots that you cannot play at the start of the Test match or the start of your innings. And I just don't think England paid enough respect to those conventions. And perhaps they would have been advised to, have a great Australian batsman called in as a bit of a consultant for how to play those pitches. But, yeah, so I think they have missed a trick with the preparation, but that's just the way international cricket seems to be these days. There's not much practice going on.
Ben Horne, enjoy the Test match. Enjoy Christmas and enjoy. It's going to be, if England lose, even if it goes to the fifth day. I know you'll know this. Even if it goes to the fifth day, it'll be the quickest. And they lose. It'll be the shortest time that the Ashes have been lost since the Second World War. Did you know that?
I didn't, but that's given me a good head start for my copy on Dave Manus. So thanks, mate. But yeah, it's it has been rapid, hasn't it? I mean, aside from the gaps in between tests, it feels like the first test was an 8, even though they've only played a couple of days. But so yeah, it'll be strange going from three matches back into each other now to the rest of the series. But yeah, look, let's hope there's still a bit of fight left. I mean, it'd be great if we go to Boxing Day with a series that's still alive. I think that the series needs it.
Many thanks, Ben.
Fingers crossed, Ben, because I knew, because I played in it. I keep taking a mick out of Nasser Hussain. Nobody will ever beat your record, Nasser, for losing the Test match as quick as you did. They're losing the Ashes as quick as you did. I mean, Ben could smash, absolute smash it. Yeah.
Look. Anyway, can't wait to get to Adelaide. It's been a long time since we've had a day test in Adelaide, so I'm looking forward to that. Bit of a throwback to the Ashes series of old. So, yeah, look, I love Ben Stokes. I love what he did at the back end of that Brisbane game. I mean, he's one of the great fighters in world cricket, and if anyone can get this team off the canvas, it's him. So if he can lead from the front, and they just need someone like Harry Brook to come off, and you just don't know.
Right, let's talk big bucks in the 100. Harry Brook has agreed a deal of £470,000 to remain as captain of Sunrisers Leeds ahead of the 2026 edition of the 100. That's a life-changing amount of money to me. I don't know whether it is to Harry. You get paid that a week if you're playing in the Premier League. Maybe I'm making a bit too much of it. Sunrisers have signed Bryden Carson, Mitchell Marsh next season, but Phil Salt has joined Welsh Fire, and he's going to earn 20 grand less, £450,000. Liam Livingston spoke to us last summer about how much he was enjoying the Birmingham Phoenix, but he's left them now. He's gone to London Spirit. That's a lot of money, Army, isn't it? Contextualize it for me.
Yeah, it is. It does sound like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. What is it? 10 games, 11 with the eliminator, 12 with a final. So obviously you'll have to play it in all that. About £40,000 a game for somebody like for Harry. It might save the EDB some money, because obviously the contract will have to be fulfilled. So the month will have to be taken off the England contract. So I think England contracts now are probably only going to last 11 months as opposed to 12 months. So England, ECB have now officially given up the whole month of, say August, but the whole month of the 100, because it just seems as though that's it. There's going to be no cricket player during that time. All England players are going to be available, and good luck, Rob Key, and the sort of directors of cricket trying to sort of say to their players, you're going to have the 100. So, are we going to see players missing Test matches now? The likelihood is, if there's a little problem with a bowler's body or a batter's form, or you want to try and give them a little bit of a break, like Ben Stokes has took in the last 100 competition. I mean, not so much to Ben Stokes. Harry Brook will be earning a few quid as well, but that's a lot of money to miss out on, to sort of preserve your Test match career, or to manage your schedule. Players have missed the 100 in the past and managed their schedule. I don't think they're missing now, are they? So good for them. I mean, good for them. I've got no problem with these guys earning the money. I'm really pleased for Phil Salt, because he goes under the radar a little bit in that T20 squad. All the talk of Archer and Butler, probably our two best players at either discipline. And all singing, all dancing, Harry Brook, who's now captain. I think Phil Salt goes under the radar because he's not the test player. He's not the one that plays all formats. But has he been effective for English in international T20 cricket. So if he does go for that and he gets that big payday, I'm pleased for him because he's earned the right to get that. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Liam Livingstone. You know what? Andy Flowers at London Spirit as well, isn't it? That might be a good move for Liam. It really might be a good move. Working with Andy Flower again. I think he worked with him at RCB when they won the IPL just recently. I know Liam didn't play many games, but I think working with Andy Flower, a deep thinker. When we talk about England, I said this last week. England have only really been a successful side when deep thinkers have been involved in the management of the side. I'm talking about Duncan Fletcher and Andy Flower. For somebody like Liam Livingstone, I think Andy Flower is a good coach for him, and I can see Liam Livingstone doing well down in the at Lords.
Okay, just talking about domestic T20 competitions, the IPL is the IPL in India, right? I think that the 100 and the Big Bash being sold to IPL teams is about finances. It's about big bucks. I don't necessarily think that Harry Brook and Liam Livingstone are going to be better players. They'll certainly be better. They'll be well off, much better off. But it's different in the smaller countries. I've seen what a difference the SA20 has made to South African cricket. It's the only opportunity that young players get to play in front of full houses. The downside is that what tiny bit of life there was left in regular domestic cricket is now gone, is dead. We heard that from Russell Domingo yesterday. I mean, you'd literally get a crowd of 100 for a big T20 game between two of the biggest franchises, but nobody watches any other domestic cricket. I think that, however, the good outweighs the bad. It is a mini IPL. You know that. All 6 teams are owned by IPL franchises. The same could be about to happen in New Zealand with the launch of the NZ20. I think that New Zealand cricket will probably benefit from that. I think there'll be an upside on the field as well as a financial upside. But I just wanted to play this bit of audio. Tom Latham was talking after the second test between the New Zealand and the West Indies about the prospect of the NZ20, which of course will probably be IPL centric. This is what he had to say.
It's a great initiative. I think you look at the way that cricket's moving around the world, where I think we're the only test playing nation that doesn't have a franchise competition. But I think what it will bring to the country, to cricket here in New Zealand, will be hugely beneficial. Having international players to boost the standard of cricket. I think we've got a great standard of cricket here, and I think Super Smash has done it's produced great cricketers for us up to this point, but I think being able to push the game forward here in New Zealand I think it will only do great things for cricket here in New Zealand.
That's Tom Latham talking about the introduction of the NZ20, which has actually divided New Zealand former players and administrators. It's not going to be a smooth process. I think there's some resistance against becoming another mini IPL, isn't there, Harmy?
Yeah, there is. But like I said about Phil Salt before, Phil Salt has earned the right and he's deserved the right to get a big payday because he's produced on the field. And I look at New Zealand cricket, and West Indies could take a leaf out of this book, that the New Zealand Cricket Board have tried their best to make sure their players are well looked after in terms of the balance between when New Zealand put matches in their schedule and their diary to fit in to maximise the player and the contracts of the New Zealand players to make sure they get looked after around the world. So there's a little bit of give and take. And now the players are going to get their big pay, not so much their big payday, but they're going to get the eyes of the world on them because 6 Indian franchise owners is going to come and you're not going to all of a sudden get an influx of new fans into New Zealand because there's only 5 million people in the country, but they're all cricket supporters. They're all rugby supporters. So if they can enhance the eyes on it, make it a better product, give some money, much needed financial revenue into it, and develop grassroots cricket, develop grassroots sport in New Zealand. The one thing New Zealand have a track record of doing in their sport is producing top players. So if there's a part of the world where you think from a financial investment to reward for product, you would think New Zealand would be a good place to go. I don't think they're going to get more eyes on the game because I think they maximise it anyway with the amount of people they've got in the country. But I think it's a reward for the New Zealand players. And also the influx of the money will make sure that the grassroots of the game will produce even better, a higher standard of players. And that can only be good for New Zealand cricket.
I agree. Absolutely, I agree. A bit of county news now, Harmy. So Jimmy Anderson has been appointed as Lancashire's red ball captain for 2026. Somebody told me it's over 15 years ago that he played a full season. Oh no, it'd be more than that, wasn't it? A full round, a full season of championship, or even over half of the games. So he probably won't play in all of the games. I'm slightly curious as to why he's the red ball captain for next summer. Which is why I'm asking you. Of course, Keaton Jennings stepped down last summer, and also Hampshire have made a couple of interesting signings. Michael Neser, we sort of knew last week, didn't we? But we couldn't confirm it. He's been signed by Hampshire for the first 6 championship games, with Jake Lehman also signed by Hampshire as a local player.
Yeah, well, the Neser one is a brilliant signing because I thought Neser did excellent for Glamorgan when he played as an all-rounder for Glamorgan, because I think in county cricket he's more of an all-rounder than he is just an international bowler in Test match cricket. So I think that's a brilliant signing. It really is. Hampshire have got a good cricketer like we've seen there last week. The Anderson one, yeah, I get that. I get why, Jimmy. If they've got nobody else, and the obvious choice was Keaton Jennings, and he doesn't want to do it. He wants to concentrate on his batting. It wouldn't surprise me if Keaton Jennings does it when Jimmy Anderson's not playing. And that potentially is, I think that's a win-win for everybody. It keeps Keaton concentrating on his batting. If Keaton then starts scoring a boatload of runs and the captaincy sort of isn't weighing heavy on his shoulders, he has to do it every now and again, then you might find that we're back in the situation at the start of next year that when Jimmy finally finishes, then Keaton will be captain off the back of the good season, because there's not many other candidates in there unless they have another signing of Marcus Harris who potentially could do it when Jimmy's not there. But I can see the logic in Jimmy being captain. How many games is he going to play? I think his body will tell you that. Maybe 7 or 8, 9, 10, whatever. And the Jake Lehman one, it's pretty simple. He qualifies because he'll have a dual passport. Craig White's married to, obviously, Craig White and obviously Darren Lehman are brother-in-laws. Darren Lehman, Jake's dad, married to Craig White's sister. So Craig White qualified for England. So yeah, Jake Lehman will qualify for an English passport exactly the same way. So he's off the back of a couple of hundreds in South Australia in the early part of the Sheffield Shield season. So another good signing for Hampshire, and possibly, I don't think he will replace all of James Vince's runs, but I think that was what was missing last year, James Vince's runs for Hampshire, and Jake Lehman will replace some of it.
Right. It's been a busy show, and we're going to finish, as always, with the final word. A couple of items for you, Harmy, unless you've got a couple to surprise me with. But South Africa's long tour of India is finally coming to an end. They just played the third T20, and they've got a couple of absolute hidings. They'd lost by 101 runs in the first game. They were all over the place in their T20 game, and they got hammered again in Dharamshala But Coach Shukri Conrad, who's been in the news for the wrong reasons after his Grovelgate comments during the second test, he said that he had to cancel a team meeting before that game because half his squad were on an expedition into the Himalayan foothills and didn't get back in time, which I thought was lovely because if you go to Dharamshala, it is one of the great cricketing spots in the world. And I'm just delighted that they weren't all sitting in their room playing PlayStation. At least they got out.
Absolutely. At least they got out. Absolutely. I mean, you're all for getting out. That's Ben Stokes's, him and Brendan McCullum's mantra: get out, enjoy the places that you're at. So you're in the Himalayas. Not sure I'd fancy trekking up it. I mean, it'd be far too cold, and Dharamshala. I mean, was it when England were there last time, and John Norman was panicking that we might have had to get when it was 2-2. When if we got 2-2, we might have to go back out. And Goffey was like, "Well, yeah, I'll go, but I'm only going the day before." It's like, Darren, it's going to take me 3 days to get there. So it's not the easiest place in the world, Dharamshala. It reminds me of me and Andrew Flintoff missing a training session after we got bowled out for 51 in Jamaica. Not going to go into the whole story, but it involved a lot of alcohol, a boat, not being on the right island, not having a passport, practicing at 3:00. And we landed a helicopter on the driving range at 9:00 that night and missed training. It's safe to say Andy Flower, who was interim coach at the time, was not happy. Neither was Sir Andrew Strauss. It ended up on one of the front end pages of the newspaper, and me and a big fellow were nearly sent home. But we had circumstances out of our control. Unfortunately, there was a few ECB delegates on that boat, which bailed us out. So it happens.
I have to just add that the boat left the island and you thought that it was going to stay moored there overnight. And you shared a cabin to recover from the talk you did that evening. And when you woke up, you were sailing.
Yeah, we were sailing. Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't quite Rod Stewart we were sailing, but we were sailing. I think the long story, the short story of it is the game finished in 4 days. There was a bit of weather came in, and the captain of the boat knew everybody's passport was in place, so everybody was on the boat that needed to be on the boat. So he decided to sort of change destinations while everybody was sleeping. And I'll never forget going to the window at about 6:00 in the morning and elbow and a big fella and going, "We're moving." And he's like, "Yeah, we're on a boat." And I went, "No, as far as the eye can see, I can't see land. And we have not got a passport. So we are on our way to a new island without passport. And we have just been bowled out for 51. This is not going to end well." Well, it didn't, but it did in the end. So they realised that was a mistake. They realised we were on there. We managed to get off without too much distress to the passengers that were on there. But unfortunately, it took a little bit of time, and we missed naughty boy nets.
You've been listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. We'll be back at a similar time next week to look back on the third Ashes test. But a reminder, Harmy and John Norman will bring you daily shows on talkSPORT 2 and the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel after every day's play. But for now, this has been another edition of Following On.